And we're live.
Woo! Welcome, YouTube, the world, people of Earth, to the 2021 Virtual Fisher Poets. I'm your MC for the 6 o'clock to 7:30 90-minute slot. My name is Moe Bowstern, and I'm coming to you live from my living room on Chinook lands here where the Willamette and the Columbia come together. We are so excited to be trying something new for real. And I just want to say, starting out, like, how proud I am of the Fisher Poets. Unlike the Olympics and many other large groups around the world who are continuing to gather for trying something new and figuring stuff out. And I just think it really speaks to the nature of people who work so closely with an unpredictable partner such as the ocean, that we always have to try something new, even when it's terrifying. And believe me, it's been terrifying for some of us. So I'm just so proud of everyone. I'm proud of everybody who's joining in on YouTube. We're so excited to be able to share what we're doing across the globe and across town. So thank you so much. And we have a few announcements, as always, to start things off. I don't even know what year this is. We've been doing this since 1998, the last weekend of February. And we have 3 nights of reading. You're on night 2 sets per night. So we're going to go until 7:30 tonight. And with me, and then we have a little break, and then we'll be back at 8 with Alma Burnham as your MC with another group of performers. Tomorrow night will be the last night of the 2021 Virtual Fisher Poets. We have a website, FisherPoets.org, which you can explore and find all kinds of offerings that I'll be telling you throughout. We have our first performers are the Brownsmead Flats, an acoustic music group that we have grown to love. They've been part of Fisher Poets since the very beginning. They like to say they perform crabgrass, which is maritime bluegrass. Many of their songs are composed by the members of the group and reflect on living in the Pacific Northwest. And for those of you that don't know, Brownsmead Flats is an area of the Columbia River just east of Astoria. And you're basically living, the houses are on stilts. You think you're in the water, you're above the water. So here's Ned to start us off. And I think, Ned, you have a new poem for us tonight, is that right? And then you're gonna share a video of the Brownsmead Flats. So take it away, Ned.
Okay, yeah, let me do my poem. First of all, I want to say last night was incredible and I couldn't sleep. I needed to write something, all the wonderful words I heard. So in my 20s, I did quite a bit of commercial fishing for tuna between Baja California and the Dixon entrance in Alaska. And here's a poem I wrote last night called Lengua Salada, Salty Tongue. In high school in Michigan, I studied French. A few years later, I stood on the flying bridge of a tuna boat, home ported in San Diego, heading south down the Baja coast, with a crew of Mexican fishermen recently boarded in Ensenada. For the next 30 days, we fished for yellowfin tuna with our bamboo poles. My crewmates showed me the ropes, were kind enough to teach me their language. Phrases like, chinga tu madre, pinche cabrón, and my favorite, hijo de la chingada. Some 40 years later, on a cultural exchange to Costa Rica, I sat with my host on his patio sharing a large bottle of cerveza imperial. Armando, in his good English, commented on my Mexican accent and said, No one in the Spanish-speaking world can swear like a Mexicano. Claro que sí, was my reply, remembering mis profesores, los pescadores. And I am coming from Brownsmead at my home, and the Brownsmead Flats, our last performance was 1 year ago. And so in October, we did a video to several numbers, and we wanted to play one of them for you tonight, which was written by Mary Garvey, who kindly lets us use her music. And this is called the Astoria Bar.
Astoria's Bar. It's very far to Astoria's Bar, but a very long journey it can be. You can start at the mouth of a mighty blue river and end at the bottom of the sea. And the river still shines and shimmers in the light as it did in our grandfather's day, when they rode all night to fish in the morning and lived in Willamette Bay. When the tide is rough, so very, very rough, so rough that you cannot stand, it drives a little fish right into the nets, and the boats right into the sand. And the river still shines and shimmers in the light as it did in our grandfather's day, when they rode all night to fish in the morning and lived in Willamette Bay. In the mist and the rain, with our labor and our pain, we know what we does disappear is worth. It is worth more than gold when we fill our holes. It is one of the treasures of the earth. And the river still shines and shimmers in the light as it did in our grandfather's day, when they rode all night to fish in the morning and lived in Willamette Bay. It isn't very far to Astoria's Bar, but a very long journey it can be. It can start at the mouth of a mighty blue river and end at the bottom of the sea. And the river still shines and shimmers in the light as it did in our grandfather's day, when they rode all night to fish in the morning and lived in Willamette Bay. And the river still shines and shimmers in the light as it did in our grandfather's day, when they rode all night to fish in the morning and lived in Willamette Bay.
Well, thank you. That was in the Brownsmead Grange.
I've heard about that Grange, Ned. I've heard people go in there and do roller skating parties. If they get a hold of the
I don't know, but we always have a nice big Thanksgiving potluck with 60-some folks, and we dance and play music. It's a wonderful event.
Well,
So great to see everybody. Thanks so much.
thanks, Ned. Thanks, Mary Garvey. And I also just want to take a moment. I'm going to be tucking my thanks in here in between. And I want to start by thanking Jamie Doyle and Amanda Gladdix around my house. You know, there's a lot of planning that gets done without some people noticing. And George was saying the other day, he's like, you look at the river and you just see these ducks floating by, but there's a whole lot of action going on under the surface. And this virtual Fisher Poets is like that. Amanda makes it all really smooth, but there's a lot of action under the water that keeps it all going. And so thank you, Amanda. Next up, we have a new person coming to Fisher Poets from the East Coast, Charles Tekula from New York, New York. It's a pre-recorded video, so we're all curious to meet you, Charles. And I just wanted to give him a correction. He says in his introduction, he meant to say that he wrote this song for Fisher Poets last year, which he had to cancel his trip out because he had to take care of his mom, who has since passed. So condolences to you, Charles, and can't wait to hear what you have to say. You're the 5th licensed crabber in New York State. You've been gill netting, potting blue crabs, and when we were emailing last night, Charles told me he had to go to bed early because he was tonging clams all day. So take it away, Charles. Let's see what you got.
Hey everyone, to get right into it, I'm Chuck Tekula, fisherman on Long Island, South Shore. This is called At Work in the Garden of Eat and Be Eaten. It's been published in several publications, including the National Fisherman. On dry land, nothing's moving yet, still dark and cold. But in the watery fields, the feasting continues. Bluefish dart like lightning in and out of the pods of bunkers that themselves still strain the tiny swimming plankton even as their brethren are themselves devoured. Spider crabs wait for the pieces to fall and then crawl through the waving eelgrass into my awaiting net for what they think is another free meal. The big bass know, but they've had their fill of these shiny, thin, and oily delights. Another aroma draws them in. The spiders are shedding now, it being early autumn, and the still soft ones are like warm-buttered muffins right out of the oven to these bright eyes and stealthy hunters. The fish that hit early on in the night have attracted a bevy of crustaceans to my webbing, there to return favor. We who trek the land with our shod feet don't face the constant threat of being eaten alive by our larger neighbors, at least not literally. We don't rationally worry that bugs and birds will peck us apart if we sleep a bit too soundly. And so we consume ourselves with these irrational fears, like the impending collapse of life on Earth brought on by the likes of my little gillnet boat. More sensible parents wonder what to put on the dinner table. Prudent chefs wonder what they'll find at their seafood supplier to grace the specials cart tonight. And if I get in early, my wonderful bluefish or weakfish or bass might be the prey that answers their prayers. But at this point in my own journey, the hardest work of the day comes first. The roughest leg of the day's excursion is the trip from the bed to the floor. Raisin bran, weather websites, and a cup of hot tea. A prayer for a safe and successful morning, and I'm off to witness another sunrise of the Garden of Eat and Be Eaten. And this is a song that I actually wrote for Fisher Poets last year, but didn't go to because of the impending pandemic. This is called The Loving Wild, and it's self-explanatory and kind of autobiographical. Only time will tell if a storm will bring a swell, if the fish will come with the morning sun. When I set my nets, there's nothing in them yet. I did not own a fish, I only have the wish that when I return, some money I'd have earned in the loving wild. Fishers one and all, we're answering the call, harvesting the field of God's provided yield. A field we did not sow, nor did we make it grow. Like the sunshine in the air, we awake to find it there in the loving wild. The universe is wild, it does not match your style. We're not here to change the world. Give Mother Earth her way, she will make your day. She's a kind and generous girl. The sparrow and the flower, they do not claim the power, they do not fret the soul. they can't control. Our wants and our desires, they fuel the smoky fires. Beyond the envy and the greed, we'll find everything we need in the loving wild. I was born a postal worker's son, but I learned to work the bay. I dreamed that I would be an old man who knew the sea. I've lived to see that day. All life comes from the loving wild, from the beginning to the end. I reclaimed my happy inner child, the wild became my friend. So like the sparrow and the flower, I do not claim the power, I do not fret the soul over things I can't control. So only time will tell if a storm will bring a swell. I pray the fish will come with the morning sun. I trust the loving one. That's it. Hope you liked it. I'll be watching.
Awesome. Welcome. That was so great. The Loving Wild. I'm just going to put some thank yous up while I talk about the next person. I'm trying to do some AV stuff. Kevin Scribner's up next. He began salmon fishing as a skiff man on a seiner out of Bellingham on the Fraser River run in 76, 78. That's 1976, 1978. Ended up in Bristol Bay, where he is pursuing his dream of marketing fish and developing value-added products. He's part of the Slow Fish movement, and he'll be at the Slow Fish Conference 6 days at the end of March. Kevin, tell us all about it. Welcome.
Well, thanks, Mo, and thanks for everybody who demonstrating that Fisher Poets will prevail even during a pandemic. And so the two poems I read today are from my fishing days in Bristol Bay. And the first poem is in honor of February, the Valentine month of hearts and our Fisher Poets Gathering. So it's called A Sea of Love on Alaska Airways. So it goes as this: the Bristol Bay Messenger Service, FM public radio, where teenage interns read streams of love letters out into the Alaska bush, bereft of phones, satellite dishes, and timely mail to pillow sweet intimacies into privacy. I love and miss you. Nothing to hide when we're in love, my dear. An alchemy of affection arcs into these words made public, anti-raising the simple, I love and miss you, into a hum now among many ears over airwaves, hungry hearts nodding in their own size of reveries with memories, saddled in bunks throughout the fleet. For millennia, did mariners bundle love in pouches tenderly tucked beneath bunks, or a necklaced amulet swinging heart close? Some say being a skipper will save a marriage and make families. With housebound pressers whistled away, gone with the outgoing tide, then joy and foreplay in return, with a child or three conceived in time, with the moon-driven ebb and flow of incoming tides. I love and miss you, out around the bay and back. Again, I love and miss you. A summer season Valentine, as public as any crooner plucking heartstrings in a city. What can embarrass a fisherman in love? I love and miss you, shared out loud, heart proud, with 10,000 souls my witness. I love and miss you. So number two, for a change of pace and character, this one's entitled, Will the Bottom Drop Out? 3 decades before Siri, we wondered if fathometers would ever speak, and with a siren's voice. No, not the honeyed-voiced who lured Greek sailors into shipwrecking rocks, but she would be gently sweet. Please, gentlemen, take note. It's getting shallow. Oh my, the bottom is getting closer. Now, gents, take care. You're getting much too close. But all's business when the waves become trampolines. Keep bows straight into water swelling before you. Forward movement for steerage, but don't rush into a bar where the water's dropped out. Just enough juice there to not slip to the side, awash in the trough. And take a nanosecond of breath to bow low to the danger at your side in honor of the many fishermen before you. Up at the deck steering station, there's no hearing the captain in the stern set cabin. Radio connected to the brother in a boat ahead. Me at the wheel in rain gear, survival suit sewed way back there beneath the bunks, a lifetime away. Is this some sort of silly joke? A night drama of storm swells rising higher and then bumped even higher by everywhere shallows? Sirens, are you there? Siri, which way do we fucking go now? Sandbars everywhere, the fathometer useless. The bottom is all about. We rely on the land in our buddy's boat, charts in our minds softly screaming, focused on a scheming way ahead. Keep bow into waves. Don't plow into a bar with no water. Into sandbars too shiftless to claim a name or a spot on a chart. And remember, always, take a breath and bow low to danger. We made it, check. Seems another one of our 9 lives used, gone. We'll laugh when tied up tonight, and then back home, we'll reset the tally on just how many more lives we each have left to lose. So I'm going to close with a limerick from salmon fisherman friend Amy Grondin. So keep in mind that oysters are a legendary aphrodisiac and that oyster acidification is taking a toll on the survival of oyster larvae. So here goes. I love these oysters, said Guido, because they really help my libido. But then ocean acid made his penis flaccid, and now nothing fills up his Speedo. So thank you all. Long live all salmon runs as those fishing. So thank you, Moe, and everybody. Be good. Take well. I love you all.
Thanks, Kevin. It's always good to follow a flaccid penis, I have to say. Nice work. Enjoy that sunshine. Next up, we have another East Coast favorite, Jon Campbell, who we now get to brag about as our Rhode Island Music Hall of Fame Fisher poet, who's also the unofficial self-appointed East Coast Fisher Poet Whisperer. Once he came out to Fisher Poets, he started dragging us out to the East Coast to show them how it was done. And for that, we'll be forever grateful. Jon Campbell, I think you're having bandwidth issues, so take a good look at him now. We'll probably turn his video off so that to make sure his audio comes through. So take it away, Campbell, live from Rhode Island.
You getting me all right?
Got you fine, Jon.
All right. So I'm going to tell you a little story, what happened yesterday. I was up, for those of you that don't know, I live kind of near Point Judith or Galilee. It's a small place with 2 names, but it's kind of the main fishing port in this area. So I was down near there and I was renewing the registration on my vehicle. And I'm in there at the counter and we're passing forms and money back and forth and all kinds of stuff. And this guy comes storming in and he's got on his rubber boots and he's got his back deck voice. And he's trying to get a copy of his driver's license. And they're telling him, well, you need your birth certificate to get that. And he says, now what do I do? He says, I got to get a copy of my social security card, but I need 3 forms of ID to get that. So as it turns out, he just come in from a 2-week trip. And while he was kind of sitting on the rail of the boat in his street clothes, getting ready to go ashore, his wallet came out of his back pocket and plopped right down in the drink. So he's in there. He says, I can't cash my check because I don't have a driver's license now. And he says, I hate to have the check deposited in my girlfriend's account because he says that I won't have any money. Talked to this guy, Dave, down at Point Judith. You know, he'll throw on a wetsuit and a couple of scuba tanks. He can probably dive down right next to where you're tied up and find the wallet. You know, it's not deep there. There's not much current. Wallet's probably laying right on the bottom. This guy's, rah, 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 you know, and he walks off waving his arms across the parking lot. And it kind of reminded me, you know, there's people that solve problems when they come up, and there's people that are just content to complain about problems when they come up. So I've got to say about John Broderick and Amanda and everybody else that when the wallet went in the water last March, I'm glad they came up with a plan. So thanks to all of them. So I'm going to sing one. My daughter came out and surprised me in Astoria last year. And she had a lot of fun. She arrived Saturday and we poked around town. And I said, let's go to Rob Seitz's and get some lunch. So we go in there, and who's the first two people she meets but Cowboy Ron and Gino? So that was kind of a good baptism, good introduction to Fisher Poets. But I was going to sing a different song, but she prevailed on me to sing this one. So here we go. Just last week we waited in the waters of the Nile, dropped a line into the brine of the South Pacific Isle, and the waters underneath our bows to Jonah and the whale, and there's the right-hand side of Moses Sea left here in this pail. And the waters here within my hand once washed a mermaid's hair. Francis Drake's Armada sank on the ripple over there. And these three small drops upon the oar will float Ulysses home. Round and round and round the world, the restless waters roam. Where the stone walls run to the face of the cliff. As many times my love and I have wandered here like this, where the waters flow past the mouth of the bay to brush the shores of distant lands a half a world away. You know that this small drop of water turned the first rocks into sand, and this one here ran off the back of the first fish up on land, and this one soaked Atlantis as it sank beneath the waves, and this one kept the vigil at 1,000 sailors' graves. So at times we might be rowing out upon the China Sea, or dropping pebbles in the blue from the beach in Normandy, or be soaked through by a breaking wave that came from Botany Bay. It's round and round and round the world, the waters flow each day. So where the stone walls run face of the cliff, so many times my love and I, we wandered here like this, where the waters that flow past the mouth of the bay, brush the shores of distant lands, a half a world away. Now it's many's a man who's left his home to sail upon the seas, to seek his fortune on the waters, so many miles from these. But the further that you sail away, the quicker you float home. It's round and round the world, the restless waters roam. So where the stone walls run to the face of the cliff, many times my love and I, we wandered here like this, where the waters that flow past the mouth of the bay, brush the shores of distant lands, a half a world away. So thanks to everybody, and hope to see you next year.
Thanks, Jon. Thanks, Campbell. Thanks to the waters that roam all over the earth. I just want you to know that George and I were dancing in the living room during your song, and I know you know how hard it is to get a Protestant to dance, so it was very moving. We've got Lou Beaudry next. He's going to give us a pre-recorded song. Lou is a retired commercial fisherman, but we all know that that's a phrase that doesn't mean anything. But he fished for 42 summers in Alaska, gill netting on the Copper River, Bristol Bay, and ended up his whatever you call it, career, life, obsession, sailing in the Prince William Sound waters around Cordova. And I love this song. As a lifelong deckhand, you'll soon understand why. So take it away, Lou, coming at you from Idaho.
Okay, great to be here and see you all. About this song, behind every successful commercial fisherman, there's a competent and supportive crew. I first met a gentleman named Victor Allday. He was running the deck on a limit seiner. It was in my radio group out of Cordova. Victor was born down in Chile, started fishing at a very early age, and fished all up and down the west coasts of South and North America. He's just a really colorful character, has a lot of experience, competent, fun to be around. He's got tons of stories, and he'll be happy to tell them to you. One year he told us it was going to be his last year. He was finally going to retire. So at the end of the season, we had a party for him on my boat on H-Float in Cordova Harbor. And I wrote this song and sang it for him as a retirement present. So this is for Victor and for all crewmen. He makes the coffee. He's up at 4 a.m. Deck is ready. Way before I am. He'll run the deck 3 days straight and also 3 long nights. When he mends the gear, how his fingers fly, and his knots are sure and tight. Then you'll find him in the galley, whipping up some fine cuisine. He's the best damn deckhand I have ever seen. He's a brown man, and I don't mean can. He
you very much.
A deckhand anthem. What's not to love about that? Thank you, Lou. Thank you so much. And it's a good reminder to all of us how fishing crews are made up of people from all over the world. And for that, we need to be able to travel to different places. And, you know, in that song, you said he came from a foreign land, but he also came to a foreign land. So as someone married to an immigrant, it's a big heart that you need to make that kind of a journey. Next up we have, so thank you, Lou. Sierra, here she is. Hi, Sierra. She's coming to us from Black Canyon, Washington. 8 summers in Southeast. She did a little moonlighting in Bristol Bay, and she has a book of poems out called The Slow Art. It's published by Bear Star Press, but you can find it at the Elliott Bay Company booksellers online. And Sierra is actually bringing us a workshop this year called Seaworthy, Translating Strong Emotions into Compelling Poems. So, you know, we all have something to learn from that, especially after this season of pandemic. And there's a couple other workshops. Brad Warren and guests are doing a workshop, Protecting the Waters, and John Palms is going to do a songwriting workshop. So just to give a plug out to that, Sierra.
Yeah, thanks, Mo. Come join me tomorrow at 4 p.m. for some poem writing. I'm not going to say a whole lot because we're all short on time, but I'm going to read 2 poems, and I picked these 2 because I moved to Eastern Washington, and they're poems about people who live in landlocked places but are still fishermen. And I also picked them because they're about loving things that are far away, which seems also like something that a lot of people are going through right now. So the first one is called Network. Shuttles flick through diamond-shaped windows, fingers flash, bend twine in stair steps, up and down, cut edges, their pockets full of hooks and flagging tape. Men mend the net. Jim recalls branding cattle as a kid in North Dakota, winter cold, just lifted, calves struggling in mud before the prairie bloomed, withered in summer heat. Playing cowboy now, he says he shot coyotes and thieves off his dad's land. You only know he's fibbing when his fingers stutter, the tiny knot coming up slack. Just one unraveled compromises the delicate lift and pull of meshes under stress. He's seen whole seams split from end to end, knows love knots pull tighter under pressure, stronger than the lines used to tie them, and starts talking about his grandmother with Alzheimer's. Each winter, she thinks every day for a week is Christmas. Last year, she fell in 2 feet of snow. Feeding the horses hay in her hands, the wind at 10 below, she lay crying until Jim's grandfather found her. She didn't recognize him, but knew love when it grabbed her, pushing back the terror. Jim joins 2 lines with overhand knots, sliding them one on top of the other, pulling for tension. Sometimes the line snaps in his swollen fingers. His hands ache. He cracks his knuckles, asks the boys if they're ready for a beer, remembering his first. At 15, he drank Rainier, the bittersweet scent biting his nose while he sipped, making him crave pancakes. He didn't know why until he remembered hunting trips when he was young, and Hot Betty, the old flat-top stove at his uncle's cabin where Jim's dad would tinker the diesel flame into smothering heat, sizzle of bacon, while Uncle Joe poured hams in the pancake batter, saying our little secret, holding a burnt-handled spatula, he'd flip white beer cakes midair. Outside the web locker, Jim's crew chuckles, calls it a day, each man popping a beer tab. At home, their fingers twitch all night, tie imaginary hitches, sheet bends, loop knots, a bowline on a bite. Jim dreams of the whole net flexing, all the pearl-sized knots, shrunk and snug, rippling in the current. And I'll read just one more. It's called Elegy, and it also has that sort of North Dakota, Alaska connection. Elegy. For breakfast, I eat the sticky rolls you made and think of riding in the fields. You always clipped the gates shut behind us, keeping the cows in their place. We never knew when they were going to take off down the highway, trotting, irretrievable, dropping slick pies on the pavement, hazards for the drivers just shifting up as they crested the bluff. Here's to the cows then, milling loosely along the fence, to the heifer with a white face and one blue eye. She drops her weight from hoof to hoof, tail impatient, flicking the flies. Here's to the rotting, to the silt on your best boots, to the glassy look your eyes took the last years. You died in August, summer harvest just beginning when you were here, kneading sweet cinnamon dough while burrs caught in the dog's fur. I was not here, 2,000 miles away, spilling fish from a seine net. I didn't even think of you, except to wonder if you'd make it through the summer. I had my own problems. The crewman sipping gin hidden in the baking bin, the skiff billowing black smoke so thick it looked as if God were smudging it off the water with a stick of charcoal. I'm here now, in time for the memorial, sitting where you sat, drinking the coffee you bought, the sticky rolls not even stale. The neighbors planted 100 acres of sunflowers, but you knew that, having watched the tractors sow seed and having seen the sprouts shine argentine with dew. There is no dew now, the heat too dry, the shoots rigid stalks, the blossoms about to be cut. How could I have missed it? All this scrutiny, and I miss the obvious, ordinary, stupendous eternity of love. It's as if you were still here, as if you awake in the chair, patched with a plaid blanket where the dog chewed a hole in the upholstery, as if you will look out the window and say again how beautiful the sunflowers are. Here's to you. Look, you would say, look how they tilt into the light. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Sierra. And that was a very compelling reason to go to your workshop. If any of us could write anything so beautiful. It's always risky when you MC at Fisher Poets because people write so beautifully about loss, and we're good at grief. Thank you, and condolences on your loss. Next up, Marty McCallum. I'm so glad that you made it. I was so excited to meet Marty and work out how Zoom works together. That's one of my favorite parts of my week so far. Marty McCallum, lifelong West Coast fisherman. He has fished, like if you get in a boat and you travel from the west till it becomes east, that's Marty's fishing experience territory from the Mexican border west to east. And these days he's sailing in a 140-year-old boat called the Indiana, and he loves her so much he's given her new top house this year. So, Marty, take it away.
Hey, hanging out in old buildings, old wood buildings, timber frame, cannery buildings, made from trees that grew nearby, Pacific Northwest giants. All the old cannery buildings I've been in have been an adventure. Massive beams, fantastic angles, staircases heading to new levels, floor plans seemingly stretch out of sight, handrails worn smooth, floors shiny, polished by 100 years of use. Machinery, of course, and other marvels to wonder about. As a pre-teenager in Seldovia, the attraction was magnetic. Mug up at 10, 3, and 9 p.m. Fresh bakery goodies, drinks, coffee for the grown-ups. Years later, I still wander old canneries. Upper levels can be the best. Alcoves with multi-paned windows light up a corner. Somebody's got a small space heater going. The smell of ancient wood, the burnished floors, bales of colorful netting tied up in ordered fashion. Welcome to the fisherman's net loft. Rows of wire cages line a wall. Storage for fishermen's equipment. I've had my own locker when I was fishing for a cannery. The question was, What cannery you fish for? Well, I'm with Nefco. That was a statement. Oh yeah, that guy's out the road at Chugach. Decent market, bunkhouse, mess hall, good tenders, plenty of storage, even haul your boat out at the end of the season. Oh yeah, nice net loft. I like hanging out in the net lofts. Gives me time to catch up on gossip, like a harbor cafe. Fishermen are trying to put their nets together. They are working. So one doesn't want to ask too many questions. If someone says howdy, well, it's only polite to respond. The seasoned fisherman uses a bench to build their gill nets. This is called hanging the net, putting the webbing on the lines. These benches have adjustable arms with pins on top that one ties the knot around. The technique is to pull the needle just right to pop the knot off the pin, creating a tight knot that won't slip on the line. One sits on the bench. A pad is nice. Suffice it to say, everyone customizes their personal bench. The bench is designed so that the length of the hanging can be changed. The distance determines the rate at which one picks up the meshes, called the hang of the net. If you want to learn how to hang a gill net, go hang out in a net loft. Back to Alaska. I'm enjoying the smell of nets and pine tar. The old growth timbers soar above me. Panels of small pane windows brighten the area. Jack R is popping knots off his very customized hanging bench like a machine. He's got motion and rhythm. Jack is the local pro. He gave up fishing some time ago to start his own business. He builds nets as a sideline, but he sells all the components to build nets. Jack has been around. He knows everyone and a few more. I'm catching up on the gossip, but I have a good reason for chatting Jack up. I need to get a net hung ASAP. Jack is the fastest net hanger, period. I get to the point. Jack, how many nets you got to go? Well, let me see. I'm booked up all week. That bad, eh? I was hoping you could squeeze me in. My web came in late and I haven't been able to get to it. The fishing schedule has been brutal. Spent most of my time dealing with an outdrive. Well, I can put you on my list. I was hoping it might happen a little sooner. Jack is watching me. I slide a hundy under his coffee mug. That got his attention. His eyebrows are up now, but I can see he might need a little more encouragement. Another hundy. Jack looks up with a grin. You're next. Thanks, folks.
Well, you got to get those hundies going. You got to peel those hundies off. Depends on the year, how many hundies you got. Thank you so much, Marty. Next up, we've got Brian Robertson, who, in addition to being a singer-songwriter who did some gill netting and deckhanding on a drum seine boat, Mid-Coast, Rivers Inlet, and Prince Rupert, also has a background in engineering and indigenous history. And he is descended from a wild Norwegian religious sect that moved to British Columbia and built all their cabins in one winter out of penknives, it sounds like, from what he told me. So Brian, show us what you got.
This is a song that I wrote some time ago it's based on the images and experiences I had gill netting in the area of Rivers Inlet, the mid-BC coast. And it goes something like this. Well, the deck is clear and ready and the glass is holding steady. And now we're out to gill net in Queen Charlotte's Strait. and voices on the radio say salmon have begun to show. The Becky B's just pulled in 48. Well, I'm a-settin' on the spot where several years ago I caught a net so full of sock on half my corks had disappeared. See the jumper to the right, mine's the only boat in sight, and once again my drum rolls out the gear. Oh, I love to count those corks going down, down, down. Salmon running by the ton, I love every pound. Rolling out my net, gonna make a high line set, and then I'll count those corks going down. Last night we were a dozen boats tied up at a sheltered boat. Aurora shooting all around the northern sky. We packed into a galley type by amber glow of oil light. Songs and well love stories past the time. Old Tommy, he spun fables about his life at poker tables, and the cards would dance like puppets from his nimble hands. He says the same of gill netting, it's a game of nerves and betting, and you help the odds along as best you can. Oh, I love to count those corks going down, down, down. Salmon running by the ton, I love every pound. Rolling out my net, gonna make a high line set, and then I'll count those corks going down. Well, it's a life beset with danger, and surprise is not a stranger when you try to make a living on a gill net boat. Well, sometimes the fish don't show, where prices are just too damn low. No one seems to care if you're afloat. But when for all my trials I seem to hit the wild, and he'll feel my neck dogfish and their beady little eyes, I'll dream of that big payoff. I know it can't be way off, or I'll scare myself about a job inside. Oh, I love to count those corks going down, down, down. Salmon running by the ton, I love every pound. Rolling out my net, gonna make a high line set, and then I'll count those corks going down. Off the stern quarter, rising straight out of the water, I see two dolphins standing high upon their tail. Oh, they look so sweet and silly, mating belly to white belly, 'cause from eye to eye they wear those crazy smiles as they sink back out of sight, making love into the night in a million miles square. Well, you know that I love fishing, but it kinda gets me wishing that I had myself my sweetheart with me here, who would love to count those corks going down, down, down. Salmon running by the ton, she'd love every pound. Rolling out our net, gonna make a high line set, and then we'll count those corks going down, down, down. Yes, and then we'll count those corks going down, down, down. We'd love to count those corks going down. Thanks, everybody. It's really great to be part of this program.
Thank you so much, Brian. That was so great. We love to see those corks going down unless they're snagged, and that's why they're going down. We don't like to see them going under, so let's have some moderation. Next up, we have Pat Dixon. I see you, Veronica. I saw you peek in there. Pat Dixon, I have you down here as a Fisher Poet ambassador extraordinaire and impresario, because once Pat found the gospel of Fisher Poets, he started planning events and taking Fisher Poets everywhere, and we love him for it. Fish Cook Inlet for 20 years. Oops, sorry, you got to see behind the scenes there. Did you like that? Because Pat is also published a book of poems, an anthology, of 5 different beautiful little books of work by all the Fisher poets, and he is included in Clem Stark's brand new Festschrift, which is a thing people publish when poets turn 80 or writers turn 80. And so everybody pretended they were Clem and wrote a thing. And Pat's in that. So if you didn't get enough Pat here tonight, you're kidding. Find him all around. So take it away, Pat. We love you.
Thank you, Mo. I am from Gillnetters, from the Skookum 2 and Veronica K. I am boats floating a night sea, circles on the back of a wave. I am from salmon slime, flake ice, scales, and gurry. I am hissing stick rips, glassy seas, wild horse, white mane, wave stampedes. I am waterhaul and roundhaul, radio fish and sunken nets, clatters, splashers, nudgers, jerkers, nothing much, and better get over here right away. I am from beer on the back deck, baseball caps, flotation vests, and rubber boots. I am Grundons, extra toughs, Vickies, and stormy seas. I am where sunrise ignites the sea, volcanoes vent over the island, belugas rise to greet stars. I am needles of rain on my cheeks, salt spray on the windshield, the shuddering slam of the hull. I'm a fire in the cabin, a blown fan belt, oil in the bilge, catching a line from a tender for a tow. I am a flash in the distance, white caps in the rip, bow slicing an ocean swell, foam in my wake. Well, I'd like to thank everybody for putting this together this year. It's way beyond what I thought it could be, and I'm thoroughly enjoying it. We've been here both nights, and this is just a wonderful event. And so, thanks to John Broderick and Amanda and everybody behind the scenes that put this together. It's really, really worth it. And we didn't make it last year because we had some health problems, and so we listened on the radio. This is far better than that, I'll say. And so it's been 2 years for us to see everybody in person. So I spent the spring after the pandemic hit writing a memoir called Waiting to Deliver. And this next poem is the title piece from it. And one of the things I wanted to do after being in the pandemic and going through the depression of it last spring is I wanted to find something positive to write about. And so this is that. On the good day, when boats return home low in the water, holds full, nets wrapped around salmon rolled on the reel. After picking half the net and laying it back out while fish keep hitting, then running to the other end and doing it again all day long. No time for breaks, a sandwich, or even water. Your face, beard, and glasses streaked black by gurry, dotted white with scales, back aching, fingers and wrists sore. You find energy reserves, threads of adrenaline buried deep sustain you till you've made the run home and toss a line to the boat you tie behind, the last of a dozen hanging off the port stern, next to a matching group tied to the starboard side of the tender, taking fish, anchored in the middle of the river. This day of donkey work, this day of absolution isn't over, won't be for hours. At the back of the queue, you know you'll be here past dinner, past dark, maybe past dawn. You'll eat a baked potato and a red salmon, garnished with lemon, onion, and butter, less than 2 hours from the time you plucked it alive from the sea. You'll wash it down with a cold beer from the cooler, watch the sunset, and think how this is the best, most complete life you can imagine. Salt air cools as shadows lengthen, and the water changes from blue to black. You trade bunk time with your deckhand and fall asleep before your head hits the pillow. The smack of a boat hook on the bow wakes you both as the next boat in line cuts you all loose to go deliver. And those of you still tethered together like a serpent in the glare of arc lights, work to move up, fighting the river's flow, pulled and yanked off course by boats fore and aft, bumping throttles forward, neutral, reverse, trying not to ram the one ahead of you, hoping the one behind you does the same. Your deckhand fends off as you swing too close to the vessels sleeping to starboard, until the lead boat tosses a line around the tender's cleat again, and you all slide back in the current like a sigh. Engine after engine goes silent. Lines creak around the cleats as they stretch taut. Your crew slips into the bunk while you settle back in the skipper's chair, light a smoke, and sip a cold cup of coffee. You're still waiting to deliver. Thanks, Mo. Thanks, everybody. Glad to see you. Looking forward to the rest of it.
Oh, it's a long couple of years it's been. We sure miss you. I was going to make a bingo card for everybody to just mark off, like, when we do the things on Zoom. I just talked with my mic muted. All right. We have an academic in the house. Actually, not in my house. She's in Eagle River, Alaska. She teaches history at the University of Anchorage, and she is newly appointed as the Alaska State Historian, which is very fancy for Fisher Poets. But she and I met at Fisher Poets a number of years ago, so long ago. We know there's 2 digits in the number, but neither one of us can remember what year it was.
Yeah, it was a while ago, but we don't have to talk about, aging and stuff.
Well, here she is to give us a bunch of historical, fascinating information. Are you going to talk about the pandemic?
Just a little bit, but if folks want to, oops, why isn't this working? If folks want to go to the website, then they can check out a video that we produced, a quick 7-minute video we produced on the pandemic in Bristol Bay. So it's on the Fisher Poets website, so you can check that out. So I just want to take a second to introduce myself again. Mo did a great job. My name is Katie Johnson Ringsmith. I was one of the very first Fisher Poets so long ago. I now teach history, currently the state historian, and I really want to take a second to thank John, Broderick, Mo, and the rest of the Fisher Poets Organizing Committee, who have graciously allowed me to share with you a bit of the visual history. Not much of a poet, but we have an incredible story to tell. And for the last 5 years, I have led a project called the NN Cannery History Project. This is a grassroots history endeavor that, through the historical lens of work, aims to share the oft-forgotten stories of the multitudes of people who canned salmon in Alaska and created an ethnically diverse, economically vital cannery culture. And the story we intend to tell is called Mug Up, the Language of Work. So the project revolves around the Diamond NN Cannery at South Naknek in Bristol Bay, the cannery where my father served as the last APA superintendent, and I slimed my way through school. In 2015, Trident Seafoods, the current owner, permanently closed the cannery, and on hearing the news, I put together a team that included fisheries experts, Alaska historians, curators, artists, filmmakers from Juneau to Anchorage to Naknek, who embraced my mission to share the story of Alaska's historically underrepresented cannery people with the whole world. Now, to achieve our ambitious mission, we set our sights on 4 interrelated goals. And to date, the NN Cannery History Project has successfully nominated the Diamond NN Cannery Maritime Historic District to the National Register of Historic Places. We supported a digital storytelling workshop for Bristol Bay youth. We've collected interviews with former cannery people for an online oral history repository. And we are in the process of developing an exhibit called Mug Up, the Language of Work, slated to open at the Alaska State Museum in Juneau in 2022, so 1 year from now. And if you are in Bristol Bay around Festival time this upcoming summer, well, you want to join Tim Troll and the Sailing Back to the Bay group to celebrate 75 years since the age of sail came to its end in Bristol Bay. And to find out more, you can go to the NA Cannery Project. You definitely want to check out Tim's adventure in his double ender to celebrate this pivotal year. Now, in 2017, our project received an NEH grant to revive, reunite, and raise awareness for the multicultural community that has existed in canneries throughout the Pacific Slope for over a century. The grant not only gave our project national attention, but honed our history activities on Alaska's essential workers and topics of social equity and racial justice. The result is a tangible, community-driven deliverable that brings Alaska into the national conversation. As the Humanities Alliance declared, Mug Up is a project for the moment. So the exhibition is inspired by the unique cannery expression Mug Up, which, as you all know, means coffee break. With workdays lasting sometimes until midnight, Alaska cannery workers welcomed the 15-minute pause, which refueled them with caffeine and pastries and provided respite from the monotony of the slime line, and momentarily brought disparate people from distant places together in unique ways. So in addition to the lap of tides, the squawk of seagulls, and the rumbling of fishing boats, scores of languages might be heard on the dock at Mug Up. Historically, Chinese, Mexicans, Japanese, Filipinos, Puerto Ricans, African Americans, Croatians, Italians, Scandinavians, Dena'ina, Supiaq, Yupik, men as well as women, the young and the seasoned, all work side by side at one time or the other. And their collective knowledge of the mechanical operation, the physical labor, and the salmon formed the cannery's industrial backbone. Yet, despite their skill and labor, these cannery workers existed in the shadows, only to be marginalized, exotified, or ignored in the popular narratives of Alaska's salmon fishery. So the Mug Up exhibition aims to drill deep into the occupational and personal history of cannery workers and show how canning salmon reflects our nation's history. And contained in the NA Cannery's century-old buildings are stories that underpin the historical manifestations of capitalism, incorporation, industrialization, immigration, world wars, global pandemics, statehood, resource management, unionization, segregation, gender equality, and civil rights. From the establishment as a 4-building saltery to the expansion into a globally reaching 51-building industrial complex, the NN Cannery is representative of the Industrial Revolution of the North. So in our efforts to tell this story, we have amassed this extraordinary collection of photos that document the forgotten experience of cannery work. So these historic images, they come from a variety of collections. Some are published, while others have never been viewed before by the public. Together, they tell a visual story of cannery life from the voyage embarked from San Francisco and sailing to Alaska. The photos provide rare insights into the lives of these cannery people, from the Scandinavians and the Italian fishermen, the Asian crews, and even the surprise of children. They convey the firsthand experience of arrival and the transition from ship to shore, the optimistic fishermen and the promise of a new salmon season. They reveal the little known experience of the Mexicans, the Puerto Ricans, and the African American crews who use music and song to cope with the hardships of the voyage. And the photos provide a perspective of those already here. These were the Supiaq people whose villages occupied the blunt bluffs of Bristol Bay, exposed mud flats, offered generous meals to the mindful beachcombers, and deep channels brought skilled seafarers safely home, while the ebb and flow of tides told time. The photos also tell a story that goes far beyond putting fish into a can. While the global pandemic wiped out entire villages, canners converted canneries into orphanages. Left in the pandemic's wake was a young generation who courageously gave rise to Bristol Bay's future. And these photos offer glimpses into Bristol Bay's salmon fishery, the iron men of Bristol Bay and the age of sail. This is also a story of change and modernization, a story of nature's bounty and the greatest salmon fishery on the planet. The photos reveal activities of the beach gang and the working waterfront and the dock crew. They tell the story of the first cannery superintendents and the very last. And they show how the cannery store introduced American capitalism into rural Alaska and how the industry imported from the lower 48 every tin, all the wood, and even the food for the mess hall crew to feed the cannery workforce. The photos tell a story of the operators at the radio shack and the laundry ladies and the wintermen and the local residents who constituted the spring fall crew. The photos reveal the so-called monkey wrench gang, the immigrant carpenters who built the canneries, and the skilled machinists who mechanized them. And the photos document the experience of the Chinese workforce, who in the early years conducted all of the canning by hand. They did it all. And the fish house crews, China gang, who after the passage of the Chinese Exclusion Act consisted primarily of Mexicans and African Americans. The photos speak to the story of the Filipino workers whose labor and union activities ended the corrupt contract system, as well as the introduction of women into the cannery workscape that corresponded with the introduction of the egg house in the decades after World War II. These photos show how, over time, these ethnically diverse crews produced a pack of canned salmon at the end of the season, ready to ship to markets all over the world. These historic images are windows into the working lives and the deaths of Alaska's cannery people. They share the untold story of the social activities, the diverse workforce, who each experienced cannery life in their own unique ways, revealing insights into how they coped, how they interacted, how they were segregated, how they danced, how they played, and how they became empowered through cannery work. The photos spanning a time period of 100 years humanize what is all too often considered menial labor conducted by invisible people, people whose oft-forgotten stories are still contained in these cannery spaces. So the aim of the Mug Up exhibit is to move cannery workers from the shadows of history and assign their work meaning. For Bristol Bay youth to be equally proud of a mother who canned fish as a father who caught them. Whether originating from China, the Philippines, or simply upriver, cannery people found dignity through their laborious interactions and left a mark on Alaska history and culture. Individuals working in cooperative effort underscore the Aristotelian principle that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, and that cannery history means more than just canning fish. So for those visitors who have never stepped foot in a cannery, these images will tell the story of hard work, which is a universal concept that connects that little known cannery experience to knowledge and values shared by visitors from California, China, or even Kansas. These are just a small sample of the images that my team has collected over the last 5 years for this Mug Up exhibition, which hopefully will do as John Steinbeck once wrote, to open the page and let the stories crawl in by themselves. So for more information about the exhibit, or if you want to honor someone you know, a fisherman with a cork, and have Marcia Dale hang them for the exhibit, or if you even have an object that you really think should be represented in this exhibit, give me a shout and I'd love to hear from you. Again, if you want to hear more about this crazy project we're doing, you can just Google NA Cannery Project and you'll see a whole bunch of information. And here are some of the places where we got the photos. So I'm going to stop sharing now. And thank you all for inviting me and sharing your beautiful poetry with me. It's very inspiring, and I might be contacting you guys to be a part of my exhibit. So thank you all.
Thank you so much, Katie. I forgot to tell the YouTube audience that Katie was taking up 2 slots, 10 minutes, because she's also representing Tim Troll, the historian. And we're just going to roll right into Rich King, who's giving us some of our beloved poetry from our beloved elder, passed on ancestor, Smitty, Harrison Smitty Smith. So Rich is coming at us from Hawaii, Cook Inlet fisherman, been sailing in Prince William Sound. lately. We love you, Rich. Say hi to Marcia.
Thank you, Mo. On a personal note, Marcia and I are fine. We're hunkered down. The kids are here. They're hunkered down with us. This place is busy and sometimes challenging. Wow. Speaking of history, I am going to do my favorite Smitty Smith poem tonight. I have tons of poetry, but Smitty was mentor and peer and dear friend to many of us. And I hope that this little bit helps you guys remember him. Rubber Hooks Divine. According to a fisherman whose name was Divine, the world's a cafeteria. You get one trip through line. With this fact and firmly planted in his mind, he set his sights on having the best that he could find. He was always dreaming of a life of luxury, but the way that things were going, 'twas likely not to be. Because in order to accomplish these somewhat lofty goals, he sorely needed every fish that'd been his trolling poles. So long and loud he would complain when a fish slipped off his line. Consequently, he was known as Rubber Hooks Divine. By unjust fate or foul luck, lost fish, his dreams were thwarted, resulting in domestic when he'd rather have imported. Resigned to screw top bottles, no cork stoppered stuff. Be damned those fish that got away, making his life rough. And he had a box of crackers and no beluga caviar, and he drove a beat up Chevy and no fancy German car. Quality of life and intricate design, those are serious matters for Rubber Hooks Divine. Well, he had a lot of friends among the other trollers, but of course included were no mega bucks high rollers. So when a cruise ship bound for Sitka happened by to pass, he took the opportunity to view the upper class. Rubber Hooks maneuvered as close as he dared to sail, and a real nice looking lady was waving from the rail. A diamond necklace round her throat had slipped its fragile clasp, and tragically it fell away despite her frantic grasp. Now diamonds sparkled in the sun as they plunged into the brine and by chance became entangled on his port side bow line. Now Rubber Hooks was trolling a diamond-studded lure that no salmon could resist, and that was for sure. Because there came an instant stretching of the spring and the diamond lure was inhaled by a 35-pound king. Well, Rubber Hooks crossed his fingers and put the girdie into gear. That this salmon might depart was his greatest fear. Oh, yes, he got the salmon with the diamonds on the hook, and he clutched onto the necklace, and off for Sitka town he took. Well, on the way, he was overcome by the strangest feeling. If he kept and sold this necklace, in fact, he would be stealing. So he approached the cruise ship office, and he left this note. I found a diamond necklace, and I've got it on my boat. I want to return it because it isn't mine, and I'm tied up to the fishing float. Signed, Rubber Hooks Divine. So while he was fixing supper, from the door there came a knocking, and when Rubber Hooks looked up, what he saw was shocking. Same good-looking lady from the cruise ship deck, and she sure looked good to Rubber Hooks, despite no diamond around her neck. Come in, I've got your necklace, and a seat please take. I'm just fixing supper here, have some salmon steak. So they begin to get acquainted, and as they begin to dine on salmon steaks and fried potatoes washed down with screw-top bottle of wine, the lady was impressed, and she began to feel that she'd never met a better man or had a better meal. She says, I'm really jealous of the life you lead. So what I'm really hoping is a partner you might need. And a deal was promptly struck that fulfilled both their wishes. Rubber Hooks whistled, tying gear, and she sang while washing dishes. And yes, they still fish together. And although his nickname stuck, nevermore was Rubber Hooks heard to curse his luck. Smitty Smith, our dear friend, mentor, and peer. Okay, I cannot wait to get back to Alaska and go fishing. It's all I think about every day. Okay, you characters, get out of here. Bye.
Rich, I thought you retired again. Are you on your third flunked retirement? Thank you so much, Rich. One of my favorite things about that poem is that my grandmother was named Divine, Mary Divine. So another Irish woman is up next, Billie Delaney. fishes out of Graveyard Point, and also right near her house in Brownsmead on an experimental fish trap. I'm gonna let her tell you about herself because we're coming right up on the ending here. Hi, Billie. Give us what you got.
Hi, Mom. All right, I'm gonna try to be quick because we're so limited on time, but what a incredible opportunity to be here. And thank you to all the embassies and all the tech people and everyone who made it possible for us to be here. I've never wished I was in a sweaty bar more in my life. Needless to say, it's been a wild ass year. As spring approaches now, and with it the thoughts and plans of the upcoming summer salmon season, I wanted to take this opportunity to talk about some of the big things that I've gone through and that we've all gone through in the last year since we were all together. I'd like to start by acknowledging the incredible stress that everyone has been under and the incredible choices that a lot of us have had to make. Thinking back to last spring, one of the most challenging aspects of the place we were in the pandemic was the difficulty of generating such critical planning around the fishery with so many daunting unknowns in every facet of our life. On a national level, we were at a point where we were in a debate that was weighing basically the economy and what was an acceptable loss of life. This was an even more nuanced conversation when you point out the fact that the presence of disease kills people, but the absence of livelihood also kills people. It was a moment of highlighting the economic disparities, healthcare disparities, and pressure that Black folks, Indigenous folks, and people of color, immigrants have been living with. There's also been the largest racial justice uprising in this country in my lifetime so far. It's been a lot. Scarcity and fear historically have had the unfortunate effect of dividing workers. For me, this past year has served to highlight the multitude of ways that I've been so privileged in my life and career, and has deepened my sense of connection to the values and principles that I held before. It's made me think a lot about the ways that I can live those principles more meaningfully in my workplace. For myself and for a number of other non-Indigenous folks, some of whom you're going to get to hear from tonight, this year that looked like listening to the requests made by Yupik, Delaney, and Sukpiak leaders and healthcare professionals that the fishery not take place on the same scale this season. For me, that looked like choosing not to participate in the Bristol Bay fishery this year. I'm coming up on a decade of fishing out at Graveyard Point on the Kvichak River of Bristol Bay, which is really paltry compared to the lifetimes or centuries of connection that a lot of people have to that place. The history specific to the name of our fish camp, Graveyard Point, almost corny in its relevance to the present circumstance, is so-called for the bodies of people who died during the 1919 Spanish flu pandemic and were buried in what is now a rapidly eroding cut bank. 100 years later, and the bodies have almost all fallen out of the cliff. While in past seasons, I have not found it to be 100% reliable that my cannery is able to provide us with donuts at mug up, suddenly processing crews and local Bristol Bay residents were being asked to rely upon our canneries for potentially life-saving medical care last year. What was being asked of watershed residents was that they put their faith in an industry to ensure the safety and well-being of their communities. This request, I'd point out, was strikingly similar to what has been being asked by mining interests of Bristol Bay residents. As all of this was unfolding and the massive undertaking of making a season happening was barreling towards us last spring, there were very few mentions being made of the protections that would be available for the very large sector of essential workers who make the whole thing possible, namely the cannery workers. And while the season was declared a success by most, it made me think about how absent fishermen's voices have historically been in the labor struggles of cannery workers. In years past, I've noted an absence of the voices and stories of fish processing workers from the FisherPoets Gathering. The outbreak at the Acatan plant has been weighing super heavy on my mind lately, and I wanted to say how much I appreciated hearing a poem from Nancy Cook last night and hearing that incredible contribution from Katie Ringsmith just now. I was pretty dismayed to hear that of the 700 workers in Acatan, about half of the 700 workers in Acatan who have been working there this winter became sick with COVID-19 in the past month. And I was really dismayed to hear that there was only one nurse on hand helping them out. All that's kind of to say, as we're coming out on the other side of this, I'm just really, really happy that hopefully we can let go some of all of this heaviness of what the last year has been, and also take some of the new skills that we've been developing of mutual aid and community care into our profession in the coming year, and think about ways that we can help out our neighbors and these other really important members of our community that aren't always represented at FisherPoets. With that, I want to thank you all for being here. If you're interested, there's a great organization called Pescando Justicia that's been doing some really inspiring work and organizing with cannery workers on the East Coast. And I want to thank you for being here, and I want to thank you for all the great work you're going to do in advance. With that, I would love to hand it back to Moe Bowstern, and she is going to be the next and last performer of this set. If anybody doesn't know Moe Bowstern, I don't know where you've been. Moe has fished from Miami to Alaska. She's published an incredible amount of zines, and she has a new offering this year called Good Night, People of Earth that I can't recommend enough. You can contact Moe Bowstern on her Instagram, Moe, M-O-E, Bowstern, B-O-W-S-T-E-R-N. And her newest offering is just a lot of the writing that she's been putting out in her daily digest, which is just an incredible asset to living. And please go to her site, check it out, purchase her zines, read her writing. Thank you, and welcome, Moe Bowstern.
Thanks, Billie. I'm going to be a little bit short. I love you guys. I love you, Billie. Fishermen are really good at grief. We're good at grief because we have to live with it so much and its potential. And I have found during this pandemic that my skills that were so hard won for me as a scrambling greenhorn from the East Coast have served me so well during this pandemic, when I could pivot over and over again and be uncomfortable and be deprived and still look and be like, I'm in my house with my cats and we have enough food and we're doing fine and I'm making art and I'm getting helped out and I'm helping other people out. And I do thank my fishing community for those skills. I'm holding the red and the green. One day we'll all go between, my friends. I lost two very special people this year, and I'm so sorry. I'm going to give you some tears tonight, but one of the things that's part of the things you don't see moving under the water is the people that hold a warm welcome for us when we come to Astoria. And my friend Leroy Adolphson left the planet very suddenly in June or July. And we stayed with him. He's a longtime hairdresser, native of third generation Finn of Astoria. His grandmother was a fighting Red Finn. She fought for people's rights. And what a lovely man. Fashion plate, art supporter, and just a beautiful man. And I will miss him forever, as will Astoria. And I lost my friend Wendy Beck, and I'm going to read this poem that I actually wrote for Joel when his dad passed. I'm going to read it from my dear friend Celeste. Wendy Beck is a fisherman that you'll know from George's zine. It's called Good Night. His zine, Love George. Well, it's my zine, but George did the writing, and it's about his time fishing with Wendy and Harvey up in Alaska. And Wendy she just got in a cancer undertow, and it just took her right away. Diagnosed September, October, gone in December. And I don't have enough time to tell you about the giant hole that's leaving in my heart. It feels harder when death comes in the springtime. You send the grief over the rail each day, haul it back over and over, never get a decent price. A 4th of July about loss in memory, midpoint of a long season. So scan the hills between fish, see the pink blush on the land where the fireweed blooms break the heart into fluff too fine to feel in calloused, salt-sore hands. Chaminarian angustifolium grows wild across the northern hemisphere. All people use it for food, tea, beauty, and of course liquor. First to sprout after a forest blaze, wartime Londoners called it bombweed, its cheery stalk. First to return and dance in the ruins that had been homes, schools, structures of safety. Fireweed essence eases PTSD, transmutes anger and shock into experiences manageable for a human container. In Blackfeet country, in Russia, on Tlingit land, people wove the fluff into blankets that held the healing fire of summer close through the long, dark half of the year. May your grief burn clean through you, cauterize you in the crucible of loss. May you bloom, reborn each day with all your scars and cracks, emerging from the rubble to grasp the bright, wild fish of your life. Oh boy, we're gonna miss those people. Here's the zine. I'm gonna sing you a song and then we're gonna be done. And I love y'all. This is a work song. It's about fishing because it's a song you sing when you're doing the real hard work of social change. And Megan Emerson, the tugboat deckhand, helped me with this. You can sing along if you know it. They laid George Floyd out on the ground. Though they beat us down, we will not shatter. His spirit rises all around. And we stand for Black Lives Matter. All the way on everything. Though they beat us down, we will not shatter. All the way, let me hear you sing. We stand for Black Lives Matter. The silent dead, we say each name. Though they beat us down, we will not shatter. Let not your lives be lost in vain. And we stand for Black Lives Matter. All the way on everything. Though they beat us down, we will not shatter. All the way, let me hear you sing. And we stand for Black Lives Matter. When life's a coin, we fight for worth. Though you beat us down, we will not shatter. All we've got is each other and the earth. And we stand for Black Lives Matter. All the way on everything. Though they beat us down, we will not shatter. All the way, let me hear you sing. And we stand for Black Lives Matter. Okay, that's the end of my set. That's the end of our night. We have 21 minutes before we go back into our 8 o'clock set. Thank you all so much. Everybody did great. We love you. Good night.